Yo, what's up? Jordan So here for the Belvedere Temple. Thank you for tuning in. We're back again with another video. This time we're going to be doing an album review, and the album we're going to be looking at is 031 to the World by Lucasraps. So without wasting any more time, let's get into it. So let's establish a little bit of context. Lucasraps is an artist from Durban, South Africa, hence the title of his album 031 to the World. He sort of rose to prominence in 2019 when he was on What It Is by Dr. Pepper featuring Ricky Rick, and that's where sort of a lot of people were introduced to Lucasraps. If you are from Durban, you would have heard about Lucasraps. You would have seen him perform at F Inc and stuff like that. He was quite close to Junior Lovey, who is a show promoter here in Durban and did the whole F Inc show here in Durban. If you were sort of within that space at that time, when Lucasraps was still coming up before he actually did the What It Is with Dr. Pepper, you'd be familiar with Lucasraps and his music and him sort of trying to break into the industry. And for some reason that it never quite happened for him at the time, it wasn't really sort of coming together for Lucasraps. But over time, eventually when he did the What It Is, it's where everybody sort of paid attention to Lucasraps and like, okay, cool, this guy definitely is one to look out for, where he did the hook for that song. And what is interesting enough is that that was over my piano beat, or Yano's, however you want to put it. It was over Yano's beat, and it was very intriguing to sort of hear him in that sort of space. And again, remember, we're talking about an artist that doesn't really have an immense body of work aside from stuff that he's done on SoundCloud and a couple of freestyles. But the one time that he sort of really announced himself, especially in the hip-hop space, is when he did the Big Time Slapper freestyle with Blackie, where everybody was like, okay, cool, these two kids are really just cutting for it. And he did a lot of stuff with Blackie, and during that lockdown time that everybody knows, if you all followed hip-hop, we're really familiar with that time between lockdown, where Blackie and Lucas were just really going at it. And I think that moment was really shaping for him, and at the time he was leaps and bounds ahead of, you know, his colleague Blackie and the music that way. He was actually the guy that everybody was sort of had eyes on in terms of like Lucasraps has next. 031 to the World sort of serves as an introduction of Lucasraps. You know, this is where he finally says, this is my body of work, this is my debut offering. And 031 is sort of a very monumental moment for him as an artist. It's about 11 songs long and it's 26 minutes in length, so it's not too long. It doesn't have any features on it, so from start to finish it's just Lucasraps, and I actually quite like that for an artist. You know, nowadays a lot of artists are sort of like sucked into doing features that they know will bring in the numbers. I do think that it is actually a brave approach for Lucas to do an entire album, especially his debut album, alone, and calling it 031 to the World, which is him to the world. I think that was very brave of him. Like, I don't think a lot of artists actually do projects without features anymore. Like, features are such a big thing in the streaming generation, so him being able to put out a body of work that's also not too long, 11 songs, 26 minutes, you could say that it's concise. It's probably going to be concise and straight to the point. It's also under a major label. He recently signed with Def Jam, so putting out something under a major label and them trusting you enough to actually do something on your own is actually cool, and it's actually dope for a young South African hip-hop artist. However, when you sort of take a deep dive into the project, I have to say that the first 3 songs are extremely disappointing. Like, the first 3 songs sound like one long song, from just how he raps, from production. I mean, the first 2 songs don't have a hook besides South. South is actually the first song on the album that actually has a hook. So it just sounds like this one long rhyme scheme that just seems to be never ending, with the heavy production, and it sonically doesn't sound good. He's rapping fast. The first 3 songs sound very rushed, and I find it extremely weird that for Lucasraps, especially being a modern artist, like him not exploring more melodies in this project. And we'll sort of talk about that a lot more when you look into the production and the beat selection of the album. But like, the first 3 songs, they're not good at all. You know, I think what makes it a little bit more difficult to enjoy is because I believe that the expectation that a lot of people have for Lucasraps is a lot higher than the output that he's given us on the first 3 songs of this album. I would say that Project Mode Freestyle, out of the 3 songs, is somewhat the more bearable song, And that's scary because it's actually a freestyle, you know. Mud really sounds good. It takes us away from that continuous spell that you sort of find like it's so rough and he's just rapping too much, you know. It's in, yes, his name is Lucasraps, but goddamn, is he rapping way too much on the first 3 songs of that album. I can't get over how terrible those 3 songs are. But when you sort of move on to the sequencing of Mud is a really good song where he starts getting a little bit more melodic, where the production also slows down and takes his foot off the gas, and it really sounds good. And then by far Without Me is the best song on the album, and what's concerning about that is that Without Me had been out for over a year before the project actually came out, and it's the best song on this album by far. It's leaps and bounds the best song on this album in terms of production, in terms of lyrical value, in just terms of melody and cadence. It's actually the best song on the album. And you sort of ask yourself, what was Lucasraps thinking when he made this album? You know, how can the best song on your album be a song that actually came out over a year ago? And you also move on to like Slide, which Slide is it's actually quite a good song. It's a mixture of the things that he's doing earlier on the album, and it's a mixture of, you know, the more melodic stuff that he's doing with Mud and Without Me. And I have to say, like, those are the only positives of this entire album, just those 3 songs. And bear in mind that the one song he released over a year ago, and then from down there, like, the project overall just becomes very cringy, very monotonous. And what makes it cringy is more of the lyrical content, where he's continuously talking about his sexual endeavors, and it's so boring and so shallow as an album. It lacks any real personality. It doesn't bring us into Lucasraps. Why is it 031 to the world? What are you taking to the world? And I have to say, there's no value in this album. And if you compare him to his counterparts, Blackie, Nasty, all of those artists, when they've released like their debut albums, they've actually, like, you know, showed versatility. They've showed how capable they are as artists. And I think Lucasraps had a lot of eyes on him, and he sort of really failed to deliver. He failed to deliver. He missed the mark. There's no ups, there's no downs. You know, did he actually like sit down and try and gather, you know, a concise, cohesive thought that he's trying to put out on this project? And it just seems to be lacking throughout. The beat selection, it's monotonous, it's so repetitive, it's similar, it doesn't ebb, it doesn't flow, there's no ups, there's no down. It's just one continuous motion. And it's very disappointing to sort of get this quality of music from an artist that's recently signed to Def Jam. It sounds like this project wasn't well curated. It doesn't think of who it's for. It doesn't think of what it's meant to achieve. It totally doesn't make sense. And it also says nothing about 031, like nothing about Durban. Like, he doesn't have to speak about Durban, but he doesn't do a good job at representing Durban either, which I believe that this project was sort of meant to be a representation of what Durban is, or a representation of what an artist from Durban can do. And I believe that it was just a bad representation of anything that's affiliated with Durban. I do think that, you know, Lucas is a good artist, and I do think that he's capable of better. And that's why I'm sort of going hard on him with this review. It's like, what on earth were they thinking? You know, the whole team that sort of made this project is like, it's a horrible project. My final thoughts is that Lucas sort of needs to go back to the drawing board with this one. With the resources, the talent, he shouldn't be producing music of this standard. This project shows also why that Blackie has sort of lapped Lucas by so much, you know, because the quality of music is lacking. You know, 031 to the World is an extremely forgettable album, and I don't think that anybody will be listening to this in 4 to 5 months time. and that's this guy's debut album, which I have to say is pretty much disappointing, especially for the talent that Lucas actually has in his locker. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about the album. Do you like it? Did you enjoy it? Have you heard it? Are you planning to listen to it? Let's get interactive in the comment section. Let's have a discussion. Let's get it going. Enjoy the music, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.